Okay with the background?
Yep, I can hear you perfectly. And we're live. Welcome to Set Impact, where we discuss how emerging technology is changing sectors, society, and the world at large. I've made a slight change to my schedule. Instead of doing interviews every day, which was kind of challenging, from now on, I'll be speaking to founders every Monday morning at 8 a.m. I speak to innovative founders solving some of the hardest and most interesting problems over LinkedIn Live. Today, we have Danae, founder of Yoxley. Thank you so much for being here this morning. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. It's bizarre the sun's out today, but it's quite deluding because I know it's so cold outside as well. I mean, could you give us an overview of Yoxley and the impact that you aspire to have?
Yeah, so I'm Danae. I'm a doctor. I've got a background in public health, and I've got a couple of co-founders. One is a chemical and theoretical physicist. The other is a military historian. And we got together to form a company that really at the heart of it is just trying to keep people safe and keep them healthy. So in this moment, with our MVP, Yoxley is a remote medical testing company that helps people achieve better sexual health by giving them more convenience, privacy, accessibility, and control. But when thinking about what Yoxley is going to do in the bigger picture, where you see ourselves as more of a sexual health movement. So we've all seen the normalization of mental health over the last few years, and Yoxley wants to do the same for sexual health. We're working to educate people through informative and relatable content. We're trying to be inclusive so that there's something for everyone. We're endeavoring to destigmatize sexual health and shift those societal norms by changing people's expectations and empowering them to cultivate healthier habits and engage in more open dialogue. And in doing all of that, we're trying to improve the health of populations by reducing the burden of disease.
That's incredible. Yeah,
Simple, right?
That's
Simple.
the best elevator pitch I've ever heard. Well, what was the germ of the idea? I mean, before the call, we jumped. We spoke about you going on to the Oxford Foundry. I mean, what did the ideation process look like?
So, I guess what we did first is we recognized a need. So I noticed it formally through my clinical work in the hospital, and myself and my co-founders noticed it informally through discussions with friends and family or personal experiences. We noticed that people were struggling to access sexual health services. So being a bunch of academics, we went and we did some research. We found that over the last decade, England has had more than £700 million in public health budget cuts. And for those who don't know, public health budgets are responsible for providing local sexual health services. So you can combine that with all of these societal and cultural changes that we've seen, right? The advent of dating apps, people getting married later in life, divorce rates going up, the introduction of PrEP, which is the pre-exposure prophylaxis for HIV, and more birth control options. So those things together with the budget cuts created a bit of a perfect storm, so that STIs in the UK have now hit record numbers. I think syphilis is up 165%. Gonorrhea, yeah, I know. Gonorrhea is up 249%.
In what timeline? I mean, this couldn't have happened during COVID, could it?
No. It wasn't during COVID. It's just over the last decade. So as you're seeing these budget cuts, you're seeing these STIs go up. And so, or the rates of STIs go up, so that it's gotten to a point where now every 70 seconds in the UK, somebody contracts an STI. I know. And it's not just in young people, actually. So the biggest proportional increase in chlamydia and gonorrhea was seen in people over the age of 65. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So after that, we did some market research and we spoke to people, and we found out that they were really, really frustrated. So often people couldn't schedule a gum clinic appointment. Gum clinics are the genitourinary medicine clinics. So they're sexual health clinics. So yeah, they couldn't schedule an appointment for about 2 to 3 weeks. They didn't have time to take off of work and wait 3 to 4 hours, in the waiting room for a walk-in appointment. A lot of times they felt embarrassed. They didn't want to discuss their sexual health problems in person. They were worried about being judged, or they were worried about being seen by somebody else they know in the gum clinic.
Mm.
And then when they did get tested for the results, they often didn't get the results for about 10 days, and they were given the results either over the phone or via a text message, but they didn't have easy access to a results record.
Mm.
And when we were doing all of this research, we realized that there was a general lack of awareness. So a lot of people didn't know that STIs can often have no symptoms, that they didn't know about the long-term health complications, and they didn't know how often they should be getting tested themselves.
Mm.
And so with all of these things, even for the people who were aware, the barriers I mentioned about the long wait times and it's awkward and it's inconvenient, they just stop people from using the service. So we thought to ourselves, okay, well, we're in the 21st century. We've got all of these resources available to us, right? There's got to be a better way of doing this. And then COVID hit. And so gum clinics, like all the other non-emergency services, right? They started operating a skeleton service to try and divert more resources towards the COVID crisis. And so what was difficult before getting into the gum clinic became virtually impossible.
Mm.
But what COVID also did is it accelerated the trend towards remote healthcare. And that was always going to be the future of medicine. But the new social distancing measures, that it necessitated widespread adoption. And in that sense, because we were offering remote services, Yoxley was ahead of the curve.
That's incredible. Essentially, direct to consumer healthcare. Essentially, you're re-engineering a process that's been done in a clinical setting and kind of bringing out a mass market product. What's really fascinating about this is because design takes up many forms, right? When you think about design and you're younger, you only think about how something looks. But when it comes to transferring something from a clinical setting to a mass market product, you also look at the user experience of the product. The shame of going into a clinic must hinder many people from actually getting these tests done. The embarrassment, and also the time you had to take off work, and so having something so convenient and something that you can do at the privacy of your own home must be really empowering. Well, what were some of the components that you really had to focus on when moving something that's traditionally in a clinical setting to kind of a mass market product?
It's interesting. So there are so many companies who are offering at-home testing. So there are some things that as a doctor, I know need to take place in the clinic. There are certain types of exams, listening, performing a physical, all those types of things. But there are lots of things that can happen outside of the clinical setting. And actually, people are capable of taking their own samples and sending them in. And especially with the advent of wearable devices, so with the Apple Watch, with all of these other kind of digital health tech things that are coming onto the market, there's no reason why in this day and age, unless it's for a specific type of investigation or a physical exam, people can't be doing a lot of these screening services in the comfort of their own home.
Yeah. Was there any feedback? Obviously you said that you're an academic, and obviously you did a lot of research. But was there any feedback that you were surprised to hear, or could you kind of shine a light on some of the feedback that you got from the ideation process?
So I will say, you had asked about some of the advice that we got from the Oxford Foundry. And the Foundry is the University of Oxford's Business Accelerator program. And being a doctor and being so careful all the time about everything, always thinking about safety nets and, trying to rule out the worst case scenario for people, I was surprised when a lot of advice we were given by the mentors, so these kind of titans of industry in the Foundry, were kind of saying, don't wait to get everything perfect. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. You need to make it good and safe and good enough. But then you need to start testing, because actually developing the product and coming up with the front end and the back end and the algorithms, all of that is just the first step. That's 5% of the work that you're going to need to do. The real learning starts when you start iterating on the product, talking to real people, figuring out what they love and what they hate. That's actually where the hard work lies. And so that was a bit surprising, because I always thought if you spend, all of your time thinking, planning, executing, it'll make it easy. But as we saw with COVID, life is a pivot. So yeah.
I mean, you said at the beginning of the interview that you wanted to create a sexual health movement, and I mean, do you envision having to create like a media type of business alongside of your product business to to kind of carry out this vision? Yeah.
Absolutely. So it kind of goes back to what I said about education. People just don't know. There's a lack of awareness. It's an awkward thing to bring up with a prospective partner. And so we think if we can make it really simple for people to stay on top of their sexual health by making it convenient and private and accessible, and if we give them more control, so not only over when they're tested and what they're tested for and where they get tested, but also control over the results record, we can empower people to open up dating conversations and make it easier for them to kind of discuss sexual health with their prospective partners. I mean, education is a huge part of what we do, and content is a huge part of what we do. So on our website, we've got pages dedicated to every STI, some of the common questions, and we encourage people to ask. But I think ultimately, what we'd really like to do as part of this movement is to fill people with confidence and peace of mind. So we want people to know that they're doing the right thing for their health, both now and in the future. We want them to know that they're being safe and socially responsible. We want them to know that they're part of a progressive movement and they're donating to a good cause. So we're working now to put these donation frameworks in place where when people buy an STI test for themselves, we'll donate one to someone in need.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating model because you're, I'm assuming you're just focusing on the UK right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, sexual health is a massive problem across the globe. You look at areas of Africa, India. I mean, that donation model really helps. I mean, from your research, I mean, have you guys noticed like a cultural shift in sexual health conversations more generally? And have you noticed? Have you guys done any investigation into sexual health into different countries?
I mean, what I will say is most countries don't have the NHS. So we're incredibly lucky that you've got this government-run healthcare system. Even though people are struggling to access those services now, there's still kind of this safety net, so to speak. Lots of countries don't have that. And actually, so I'm from the US, and I think actually services like this would do really well in places like America and other parts of Europe. So this absolutely has the potential to become a global thing. In terms of changes in the way that people discuss sexual health, what I will say is that the LGBTQIA+ community has actually been at the forefront of being open and discussing sexual health in a lot of times because, their needs aren't necessarily met by conventional medicine. And so they have to be their own advocates. They have to kind of educate providers who may not be familiar with some of their problems. And so that's something I would say that they do really, really well, and something that Yoxley would love to expand and to kind of include that type of openness and dialogue and, I guess patients who are informed about their health and what their needs are, to kind of involve everybody in that conversation, because for a long time it was very taboo. And I think still people feel a little bit awkward, but just to give you, Viagra is off license in the UK. So we've got dating apps, and there have been all of these changes in society that actually have changed the way that people date, changed the way that they behave, changed their sexual, practices, but we haven't quite updated yet to kind of match their level of need.
Yeah, I mean, more broadly, I mean, what are the current issues pertaining to sexual health in the UK currently, in your opinion?
Okay. I think, well, going back again, so I think there's a lack of education. So I think, I mean, I didn't grow up here, but from everybody I speak to, sex ed was pretty abysmal. And even, I don't know, do you remember? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if what you remember from it, but I think it was very perfunctory. And even with the internet, there's so much misinformation out there, and people, they don't know necessarily where to go to get trusted information or, contemporary information. You don't want necessarily something from the 1950s. You want something that reflects current practice, right? So
Yeah.
I think Yoxley does a really good job at taking real people everyday problems and kind of combining it with best medical practice and scientific standards to try and give people easy to read information and education. That's one of our main goals. So I think
Yeah.
that's one of the big problems today is just a lack of awareness. And like I said, a lot of people don't know that STIs can have no symptoms. So you can be infected for years with an STI and not know and pass it on. And this can actually create a lot of long-term health complications. So pelvic inflammatory disease, difficulty with fertility, and people won't pick that up until much later in life when they're trying for a family. And that actually ends up costing them a lot emotionally, physically, and it costs the NHS a lot in terms of funding. So if you would invest a little bit of money today to prevent diseases or to kind of pick up on them early and get them treated early, you'll probably reduce your long-term health spend. And it's better quality of life for the patient.
I mean, swinging back to your product, could you kind of show us what your box looks like and what customers would expect to receive?
Yeah, so it's a pretty small standard box. Everything that you would need is included in here. These are some of the instruction leaflets. We try and keep it user-friendly, really simple. We're not scary. We don't want to fear monger or kind of, be alarmist. It's already kind of uncomfortable having to take a sexual health test. We don't want to make you feel any worse. So the way it works is that adults 18 years of age and older can go on our website, yoxley.com. They register, select the test kit that they want, and then they place their order. The test will arrive. So this kit will arrive in about 24 to 48 hours. So it gets posted to you. Discreet packaging, it fits through a standard letterbox. There's no signature that's required on delivery. You can take the test at a time that's convenient for you, and then you post your samples back to our lab. We have in there a prepaid kind of Royal Mail return envelope. And then within 3 business days, you'll get your results emailed to you, along with advice about treatment, retesting, and anonymous contact tracing.
That's amazing. I mean, in terms of, and so that would be your MVP, right? So that's currently what's into production right now. That's what customers can get right now.
Yes. So this is what people can buy at the moment. So this is the MVP. As we graduate from the foundry over the next few weeks, we're looking to open a pre-seed funding round, and that will allow us to hit our next milestones. So like I mentioned, so we're looking at ways to introduce donation frameworks. We're also looking at ways to try and subsidize our prices to make them more affordable. We're continuing to generate content and educate people. We want to build out our tech platform, expand our range of tests, and we're also hoping to then open or partner with an online pharmacy so that if people do receive a positive result, then actually they can have the option to purchase treatment then and there and have it delivered.
That's super interesting. I mean, it kind of swings into what I wanted to cover next. I mean, how do you kind of think about the marketing and the customer acquisition challenges associated with creating like a mass market product? I mean, do you envision having to partner up with online pharmacies, clinics that already have that distribution? And I mean, are there specific partnerships that you hope to establish or even begin conversations with right now? Feel free to tell feel free to shout their names out as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, let me think, because you asked a few questions there. In terms of marketing challenges, I think, marketing any product B2C, you just have to really be careful with your segments and really drill down on who it is you're speaking to, what messaging resonates with them, what are their specific pain points. So somebody in their 20s may have a different pain point than somebody in their 40s. They may have some of the same challenges, but, they may have different pressures in terms of time, budget, all that kind of stuff. So drilling down on the segments is really important. I think when we looked at our branding and kind of our marketing, we wanted to keep it lighthearted. We wanted to keep it kind of familiar and simple and playful. We didn't want to be a doom and gloom kind of brand, and we didn't want to be overly clinical. I think in terms of partnerships, obviously an online pharmacy would be great. Because again, telling people that, they've got a diagnosis is one thing, but telling them, okay, you've got a diagnosis and now you have an option to treat it. So kind of like a one-stop shop. That would be ideal. I think it would be great to partner with a private insurance provider if they don't already provide a service like this, a progressive HR department, just as a trial to see if we can kind of get it out there, get people using it, see what they like and what they don't like about it. And I think, I mean, dating apps would be another great place to go to open up conversations with them and say, you know, could you promote something that's healthy? There are lots of, I guess, social media giants out there and all these companies that we are now holding responsible for the content that they put out. And so it would be great if they would consider something like this and consider encouraging their users. They don't necessarily have to use our brand, but just to remind them about sexual health and wellness. And actually, it is a big part of dating that often gets skipped over.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of actually, we'll touch on your fundraising. I mean, are you guys? You mentioned that you're fundraising. I mean, do you want to kind of highlight how much you're fundraising and what you're hoping that could facilitate?
So we haven't opened up the round yet. So at the Oxford Foundry, we there's a demo day. So all the teams that kind of graduate from the program, they open it up and we all pitch to interested parties, investors. And so this year it's going to be virtual, so it's going to be a bit different. But yeah, so we plan on opening in a couple weeks, pre-seed round. So until now, we've been entirely self-funding, and we had a couple small grants. So we've done everything we've done for under 10K. And to date, I mean, we've met all of the medical legal requirements. We are fully GDPR compliant. We've taken extra precautions in every measure to protect patient user, I guess, privacy and data security. We've got the prototypes ready. We've got the contracts in place, and actually we'll be opening up sales to the public this week.
Amazing. I mean, in an uber optimistic world, 24 months from now, assuming you have the funding, the talent, where do you envision being as a company? And also from a product standpoint, what do you hope to be able to provide your current customer base and potential future customers as well?
If we were to get funding and we were able to build out our tech platform and expand our services and to include more testing options, treatment options, to bring on some really great content writers, to continue to pump out that really good quality, informative kind of social media plugs. I would love for people to have a Yoxley subscription. So when I think about, I said at the beginning, one of the things that we want to do is we want to keep people safe and keep them healthy. And I think a lot of people, oftentimes they forget, it's not convenient, it's not easy. And I would love to take that burden off of individuals and kind of have the Yoxley absorb that. So for example, let's say, you know, the average adult needs a minimum of 1. Some people need 2. Some people actually should be tested or screened every 3 to 4 months, depending on, you know, their behaviors. So what if there's a way where you could pay a small amount every month, and then we could send you a test as you need it, so you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to remember when you're due for your screen. We'll take on that responsibility. We'll give you an accurate record of your results. I mean, when I say expand testing, for example, people who take PrEP, the pre-exposure prophylaxis for HIV, they need annual liver and kidney function checks. And what if we could include, and what if we could include that in your package? So you don't have to remember to do that either, you know? So what we want to do is make it easy for people. And I think if in a couple of years we've secured funding and we've been able to build an app and we've been able to integrate with other digital health platforms or dating apps, or if we've and if we can kind of build out our customer base to provide them with something that makes their life simple and easier and makes them feel like they're doing the right thing for their health, I would consider that a success.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, going back to, actually, we can go into the quick fire last 5. Actually, before we do that, I mean, is there anything else you would like to shout out? I mean, in terms of, are you guys hiring? Where can people find your product?
So you can find the product on our website at Yoxly, Yoxly.com. And I guess what I will say is we always want to hear from people because we want to give everybody a voice in shaping Yoxley. So people can also find us on our social media handles. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, it's at Yoxley Health, no space. And then we also have a LinkedIn. We have, so I mentioned our 3 co-founders. We also have an advisor, Ben. Ben is an ex-COO of Google Europe, and he was the previous managing director of Ola. He's recently set up his own company, Digital People International. So it's pretty cool. You should check it out.
Yeah.
But Ben has been an amazing resource, and we've recently taken on some content writers. The team is growing, but we're always looking for people who have experience with social media, with content creation. And so if anybody's interested or wants to work with us, we're open.
Yeah. A quick last 5. What's the most valuable purchase under £100 that you've made?
Ooh. Me, what have I purchased?
Yeah.
Under £100.
Yep.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. I'm trying to think. I haven't been doing much shopping in COVID. Let's see. I purchased a cell phone sanitizer. It's one of those long, like blue light cases that you plug in and you put your phone in it at night, and it sanitizes it. So I guess I to be fair, I mean, it's kept my phone really clean. I always check it for germs. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Is there a book that you would gift to a fellow startup founder?
Because I'm so entrenched in it now, and as a doctor, it's never something I ever gave any thought to. I believe it's called Contagious. Is it Contagious? I think it is. And it's basically a book about, the 6 steps. I'm so sorry. I'm going to Google it really quick because I gave it to somebody.
So you actually, that's amazing.
Yes, it is called Contagious. Sorry, and it's called. It's by Jonah Berger. That's what it is, and it's all about why people buy things. What is the reasoning and the rationale behind it? And for anybody who's involved in a startup and really wants to understand people's purchasing behaviors and who their customers are, cannot recommend the book enough. It's a really easy read. But yes, I do read books.
And most valuable advice you received throughout this journey? It's been a short one. So you started in January 2020, right?
Yeah, we did. Okay, quickly, I would say fail fast and fail often. So don't wait till everything is perfect before you start. The hard part in the learning is going to start when you've got a product out there and you're iterating. So don't think you're going to get it right the first time, because nobody does. I would say be careful when you pick your team. So don't pick people who are yes men or women. Pick people who think differently than you, that challenge you, that have different skill sets than you, and who are, I would say, who are innovative, creative, and they've got integrity. If they've got those things, you can figure everything else out.
And what gives you the most, I was going to ask relief, but there's no relief as a founder of a tech company, but what gives you the most joy and gratitude for the work that you do? Because it's definitely difficult, but I mean, I can tell it's really fulfilling as well.
Yeah, I think it makes a difference when I speak to somebody and they say, I wish I would have had something like this. This would make my life so much easier. I get excited when people say, where can I buy it? When can I buy it? And there are lots of people who are expressing their frustrations to me. And when I talk to them about what it is we're trying to achieve, it is so rewarding to know, both as personally, but also as a clinician, that I can improve the health of not just this one person sitting in front of me, but potentially the health of an entire population with the work that I'm putting into Yoxley. Whereas when you work in a hospital day to day, it's one patient at a time, you know?
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I think that marks the end of the interview. I really appreciate you jumping on. Could you stay on the stream, but I'll turn this off right now. So thank you guys for whoever tuned in. And yeah, if you guys want to find, was it Danae? Am I pronouncing your name right?
Deny, like the patient denies nausea, vomiting, shortness of breath.
Danae, you can go. You can find her on LinkedIn, and you can also find her on yoxley.co.uk.
It's .com.
.com, yoxley.com.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll put all of the details in the comments section at the end of the interview, so you can find all of her testing kits. And I'm sure she'd be available to take any questions as well later on. So thank you.
Thank you.